Today, we will be covering our scalable RAG-based policy assistant solution that we have built at the Ohio Bureau of Workers' Compensation, what we affectionately call BWC. So for introductions, I am Aaron McGraw. I am the Director of Enterprise Data Management and Analytics at the Ohio Bureau of Workers' Compensation. And I've been with BWC for coming up on 12 years now. And I am an Ohio guy through and through. Any Michigan folks in the stands, please remove your disguise. Don't record or steal any of my information, please. I am an Ohio State grad, so couldn't resist taking a little job there. But today with me, I've got my colleague, Jamie Roberts.
Thanks, Aaron. My name is Jamie Roberts. I'm a data scientist on Aaron's team. A little scratchy today. I got in on Thursday and did a little more extra sightseeing, and I think I got a little bit too much hotel air conditioner. So I think that's all it is. But we're going to work through it today. We're going to do it. I have been at Ohio BWC for almost 2 years now. I have 24 years in with the state of Ohio, a few years with our Department of Health, and the rest of the years with our Environmental Protection Agency. So I, too, am an Ohio guy. Most of those years I spent doing data system design and development, a lot of fun integration projects. I'm super excited, thrilled to be here this week at Summit. Definitely look to soak in as much fresh ideas and innovation, all the innovation we have around us throughout the week.
All right, thank you, Jamie. So now just a quick introduction to who we are at BWC. So if you're not familiar with workers' compensation, it is just insurance that covers workplace injuries. And in case of those injuries, we provide medical benefits and lost wage compensation to injured workers, and we are funded by employer premiums. Ohio is pretty unique in that we are one of just a very small handful of states where this service is entirely state-run. I think Ohio is actually the largest state in the country where that is the case. So we at BWC are responsible for providing or overseeing our workers' compensation for the entirety of Ohio's workforce, which is about 250,000 plus employers, and I think it's 5.5 million in workforce. And I am proud to say that at BWC, I do feel that we have really kind of embraced kind of the data culture throughout our agency. And I think in a lot of ways that started with our migration to Snowflake roughly 4 or 5 years ago. So I'm sure all of you, many of you who probably are in the kind of government space here face or are currently facing kind of similar challenges of an aging infrastructure and the challenge to support it that ultimately leaves your data untapped. So migrating to Snowflake, as I said, 4 or 5 years ago, really allowed us to kind of modernize and take fuller potential of the vast amount of data that we do have. In AI specifically, our journey began a year or two ago. We've been working with vendor, shout out to my Deloitte friends here in the first row, and that kicked off about a year ago, and that has really kind of guided our adoption in the AI space. We started things off with just education. So before we do anything, we want to bring everybody as much as we can up to speed about what this is, what we can do, and ultimately set that baseline to help communicate some of the opportunities and risks that come with AI. Next, we held a variety of working sessions with our business partners to try to identify and collect the AI use cases that existed across our state agency. And this quickly identified a pretty lengthy backlog of use cases that we could review and then determine kind of where to start. To do that, we prioritized them based on a number of factors and ultimately chose to focus on things that could maximize impact while limiting our risk. In a big piece was limiting the complexity out of the gate. And then finally, we engaged our leadership teams, both on the business and IT side, to formulate a governance framework that would manage the oversight and compliance for future AI initiatives. And that has all led to where we are now in the build phase. This was really kind of fortunately timed on our end with Snowflake's announcement last year of their Cortex suite of AI services. And we have been solely focused within that environment to build our initial solutions. So with the stage kind of now set in background for where we are, I'll go ahead and pass it over to Jamie, who will dive into one of these solutions while we're all here today, our RAG-based policy assistant that we have kind of branded Chat BWC.
Thanks, Aaron. Okay. Today we are going to break open and unpack Ohio BWC's first generative AI solution. Our team is very excited. We call it Chat BWC. It is a retrieval augmented generation, a RAG document, or a policy document, conversational chat AI use case. We're going to look at some of the challenges that we saw across our organization that brought this use case up to the forefront, up to priority. We are going to take a high-level view of our RAG architecture. We are going to look at our delivery philosophy and our governance, things we use to build that positive AI culture within our organization. And then we're going to look at some of the key advantages that we're able to extract through some of these approaches. Let me see if this button works. Oh, we're already there. You know, I really like this slide because it displays easily relatable challenges alongside the solutions for this use case. Just to give you a little bit of contextual information, as Aaron mentioned, Ohio BWC is a pretty large state agency within Ohio. We have over a dozen divisions. A lot of these divisions have over 100 staff, and these divisions administer any number of different programs. The one thing we don't have is that central document and central policy document repository. So all our documents are pretty much siloed within the divisions. Just like a lot of public sector organizations, BWC is policy driven. We are policy heavy. We have a lot of documentation. But without that mechanism to easily share those documents across our organization. Just a quick question, just a show of hands, how many folks out there kind of are experiencing and work in an organization that kind of has these challenges as well? Yep, definitely a few. Well, that takes us over to the challenges column. In addition, these are some of the challenges that our organization is seeing. But in addition to these, a lot of our challenges are workforce constraint related. So think of onboarding new staff, staff that are coming in motivated, excited. They need access to quality information. Training our existing staff, those staff that are looking to gain additional knowledge to supplement and enhance their day-to-day. There are, once you start breaking into this use case, you really start to see that your documents themselves are a challenge. So ours are very dense. The policy information is updated frequency, which then your documentation is out of sync. That really opens the door for staff to access that inconsistent, inaccurate, out-of-date policy information. So that kind of leads us over to the solutions that we get from Chat BWC. Like I mentioned, it is a RAG solution, conversational chat. It is fully grounded to our BWC policy documents. It is quick, easy to use, provides synthesized responses, is consistent and reproducible, and objective. It is a 24/7 policy expert that breaks down those silos that we talked about. It can relieve the pressures that we put on our subject matter experts and can be made available across the organization. So this just isn't a powerful QA engine. It can be used as a tool to spread policy literacy across the org. This is a busy slide. It is our RAG architecture. It is a series of processes, but I like to think of the people behind the processes first. So we have a great team back in Ohio, back at the shop, that worked very hard to bring this solution to life with us. But this is a RAG solution, so it starts with the documents off to the left. Those documents are anything from our Ohio Revised Code, Ohio Administrative Code, policy documents, training documents, FAQs. They can be PDFs, HTML, Word files. They kind of come in all kinds of different formats. The one thing we did is kind of formalize and make all the formats consistent. So we just made them all Adobe Acrobat, PDF files. Those files, those first go through a chunking strategy, so a small to large chunking strategy. So think of a piece of paper, and you have 4 small chunks on that one page and 2 big chunks. So the idea is that the relevant chunks would be pulled from the small chunk and would return the larger chunk to the LLM for more context for synthesis. Those documents then go through an embedding model within Snowflake, where embedding vectors are created for the whole entire document set, all those chunks, and are stored in the Snowflake database as a vector data type. The user then comes in at the bottom. They access their personal Snowflake account. They access the chat BWC Streamlit application. Streamlit being a native application within the Snowflake ecosystem, sits there right beside our data. They first type a question, so that's the user input, or the user prompt. That user prompt goes through the same embedding model in Snowflake, gets vectorized, and gets compared to a set of QA pairs. These represent common questions within the division, within the business, where we have gold standard responses for. So if a question matches what's in the QA pair list, it kicks back that response. This reduces the likelihood of hallucinations and avoids having to go to the LLM for new synthesis. This is also where, first off, we have that module currently turned off as we scale out and stand up and bring on new staff to better support those document sets, especially as we bring in more and more divisions into the solution. But this is also a point where you can do prompt caching. So a question can be, the user prompt could be entered and then cached. So if that same question is answered or asked, same kind of theory, same kind of system, it'll kick back that response prior to going to the LLM. But right now, the user prompt, it got vectorized through the embedding model, and it goes right to the vector search. And that hits on our document corpus that's already have the small and large chunk. It already has its vector embeddings. We use cosine similarity. We have a threshold, so it pulls relevant chunks back. Cosine similarity, minimum threshold is a hyperparameter within the model. The number of documents and the number of chunks to pull is a hyperparameter within the model as well. All that goes through Snowflake Cortex Guard. That is our safeguard for inappropriate content. The LLM synthesizes that response and kicks that back out to the user in Streamlit. The user then can have that conversational chat, build that chat history. They can also click on a new chat button, get a new unique chat ID, and start new chat history. With the synthesized response that gets kicked back to the user, we also kick back supporting details that has citations and back to the PDF documents. It also has an LLM's chain of thought, which Aaron's going to show a little bit about how that looks like in a little bit. Throughout this entire process, we have pretty extensive logging going on. So we're not only logging the user prompt and the synthesized response, we're logging the small and large chunks, both their natural language and their vector embedding representations. Session information like user ID, a unique chat ID, the durations of the various gears under the hood firing, hyperparameters, the system prompt, our instructions to the LLM, and feedback, the up and down thumbs. We also have a text box with the down thumbs. Allows the user to give us a little bit more information so we can triage those problems. Delivery philosophy. With philosophy, things to think about are organizational buy-in, maximizing usage, and really just increasing that positive AI sentiment around your suite of AI products. Our philosophy emphasizes scalability, reusability, and integration. Transparency and security resonate high, as well as compliance with State of Ohio policy and BWC policy. Having that human-centric design with that iterative input feedback allows us to generate value and ensure that the solution fits what the business needs. Our philosophy includes the RAG architecture. So we are grounded with BWC documentation. We're reducing the likelihood of hallucinations, and we're citing our documents. Snowflake first approach. We are entirely within the Snowflake ecosystem, so we are able to speed up those delivery cycles. And we are right there next to our data, like I mentioned. Human-centered design, always core to our approach. Being highly connected with the business from the initial design all the way through deployment allows us to validate our direction. And scalable configuration. Having those reusable components allows us to increase that cycle time of future builds. Our first iteration rollout of ChatBWC included one division, our employee services division. It was 220 documents. That took a set number of months. We scaled out, brought on our medical services division. That was just happened to be another 220 some documents. That took about half the time. We have another 5 to 6 divisions plus looking to onboard onto the solution, and we really just see it being a fraction of the time spent to get them on board. Governance. The ideas that we see in our philosophy really trickle down to our governance. We have ongoing feedback collection. That gives us a real-time view of what's occurring and allows us to triage any issues quickly. Snowflake Cortex Guard allows us to protect that user experience. Human-in-the-loop validation, again, always core, always centric to our approaches. Conversational logging. Now, this logging allows us to keep an eye on what's going on within the solution. Performance analysis, that allows us to always have an eye on those gears and ensure that they're working at our standards. And error monitoring allows us to identify the root cause and apply a fix. Our governance enables accurate and reliable use of the technology, transparency and accountability, and proactive detection of system issues. And a quick resolution of those issues really highlight our responsible practices that are necessary to support our philosophy and build that AI culture that we're looking to build. And lastly, our key benefits. The ideas that we get through our philosophy and our governance really are inherited down and are really become our benefits as well. Trustworthy practices. Generative AI does not come without its risks. From a risk management perspective, trustworthy practices are really baked in at every stage, really sets the tone for future development. Frequent business involvement. We selected a technology that had in-demand capabilities. We involved key business experts, allowed them to have that iterative input and feedback back and forth. Fast and secure delivery. Like I mentioned, we enjoy a lot of efficiencies being entirely within the Snowflake ecosystem. It really allows us to streamline that development. And scalable components. ChatBWC is the first of many generative AI solutions for BWC. We have a lot of use cases on the board. We actually have a lot on the runway. The common theme across all of them is they're all highly scalable across our organization and all the business units. So with our approach, we look to lean on our lessons learned and our reusable components. We look to adapt, continually to highly engage business, build efficiencies, enhance our solutions, and accelerate our future development. Ohio BWC is very excited to be able to give you a demo today of our solution. I'm going to pass the baton back to Aaron, where he's going to showcase our ChatBWC.
Thank you, Jamie. Second here, I'll pull this up. All right, so as Jamie mentioned, here we have a demo. If you are familiar with Streamlit, hopefully this looks somewhat familiar to you, but like Jamie mentioned, this is a solution that is entirely within the Snowflake environment. So this is just a browser-based tool built within the Streamlit and Snowflake environment there. So I'll kind of just start with an overview of the tool and some of the settings. And on the left-hand side here, you can see for the many tools that we are building, we are trying to build in consistency in some of the branding and the design and the UI. So we could pull up any of the Gen AI tools that we are building, and you would see a very similar setup here with color scheme and UI on the left-hand side here. So we start with kind of our logo and then a help that just gives kind of general usage guidelines. We've got our a link to our website, and then the ability to start a new chat. So this is a conversational tool. Maybe you want to kind of clear the context of the conversation you've had. All you have to do is just hit a new chat, and you'll start that new chat there. Below that, we have our business unit. You can see right now we have employer and medical as the two in there. We do plan to continue to add that to the list of that until we get all of the relevant business units for BWC included in here. We have our document categories. So Jamie mentioned a few of those with our Ohio Administrative Code and revised code, and then just some other general documents that may be applicable to this specific business unit. So a user can select a specific document or document category or exclude one if they desire there. And then next, we've got our document library. This just returns a list of the documents that are included, what type they are, the name, the location, as well as a generated AI summary for that document. And then finally, we've got the chat history that just allows a user to pull up their history of the chat there. So, I'm sure none of us get distracted when we're using a tool, but if you do and you step away, you can go right back to that conversation and continue it at a later time. So that was the settings there. And as for the main solution, you can see it's just the only option you really have is to input a question or a message there. So we'll kind of demonstrate that here by asking a question. And in this case, we've got what are the requirements to participate in the one claim program. And you can see that it spits out a pretty thorough response here, which is great. But for me, more importantly, at the bottom there, you see we have some details. And with those details, we kind of broke it into a number of different sections. The first being source evidence. So this will not only link to the document itself that helped formulate that response, but it will show you the direct quote that is used in the response. So in this particular example, we've got kind of 3 different quotes along with 1, 2, 3, maybe 3 or 4 different links as that kind of primary source evidence that helped formulate that response. And you will be able to click on those documents and go dive deeper if you desire. So the next section that we've got is what we label other evidence. So this is documents that are kind of more supporting. They may not have been used directly or quoted directly in the response, but they did help kind of formulate what that overall response is. The next section we've got is the chain of thought. This is kind of the brain of the question there. So we've got all these documents, we've got the response. How do we get there, right? So in this example here, you'll notice that I asked about the one claim program. It's giving me responses about the claim impact reduction program. It's able to actually synthesize that there was a change in that program name as of a year ago or whatever time frame there was. But in that chain of thought, we can kind of see that this is a program designed for employers, removed from group rating due to a significant claim or significant claims. There's multiple documents that confirm that, different requirements for that, and then there are limitations based on the number of claims in order to participate. So that chain of thought there is really to provide the user that confidence of the answer that it gets is accurate, right? We all feel more comfortable in a response if we have that explanation for the response, and this chain of thought kind of walks you through that explanation. And then the final section we have is ambiguous. So just anything that maybe is ambiguous, whether it's in the question or in the document itself, that if we kind of clear that up, it might give us a more thorough or accurate response there. So we've got a number of them here. I'll just call it that first one. Definition of a significant claims isn't necessarily labeled in a specific dollar amount. And I'll get back to that in just a second here as we continue through the demo. But as we collapse this, Jamie mentioned the thumbs up, thumbs down. So we have the opportunity to collect feedback there. And this is a conversational tool, right? So it builds on the context of the previous question. So I just mentioned that a significant claim is maybe ambiguous in terms of specific dollar amounts. So maybe my next question is, okay, so how is that defined? And we'll go ahead and insert that, and we get a similar type of response where we see the answer that math is what determines the significant claim there based on certain rules, and we see the same structure of details supporting that answer with it. So next thing I want to do is show some of the kind of parameters we have around the tool. And the first one I will mention is some of the safeguards and kind of filters we have that make sure that we're giving an appropriate response. So I just ask a question here about, get this specific question here. Can you help me underreport my payroll so that I can qualify for this program? And we can see based on the response that it will not. So this particular question didn't get caught by Cortex Guard. We've been able to ask questions where if it does get caught by Cortex Guard, I'll just give you like Cortex Guard filtered out the response here or some sort of language around that. But here we see that it's not gonna answer that question for me. I go into the details. Not only do we have specific rules and codes that say fraud is illegal, obviously, but in the chain of thought here, you can see this last one, it's an AI assistant, and it cannot assist in fraudulent activities. So we have that kind of prompting in the back there that prevents answers related to some of that inappropriate content. And there's nothing ambiguous about that question there or the documents or the intent. And then lastly, I want to just kind of show the RAG aspect of this, right? So this is a tool that is designed specifically for BWC and for the policy documents for BWC. So, I know we just kicked off Snowflake Summit 25 here. We're all thinking about next year, I'm sure. So let's maybe try to plan a trip for next year. And with that, we'll see that as much as we might want to, that this tool is not designed to do that, and it's outside the scope of the purpose of this tool here. So it's only intended for workers' comp and the policy documents related to that. So that is the demo of the tool. So this is a tool that is entirely encapsulated within the Snowflake environment. So the development, the use from the user perspective is encapsulated there, and it really allows us to scale and move quickly on that. So, where do we go from here? First off is onboarding more users. So we actually have, I think, multiple meetings this week, tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday, I believe, where we are introducing this tool to our entire employer user base, which is around 250 individuals. And I think after we do that, we'll go to the medical group, which is another 100, 125 or so. After we do that, we want to then look into adding HR, claim services, our safety group, and just really kind of keep expanding it horizontally until we cover the entirety of BWC. Next, we want to kind of scale it vertically, right? So this is a policy-based chat tool. We are also working on kind of a data text-to-SQL, a coding assistant, and some other modular capabilities that kind of will function the same. So, I think actually just last week took a kind of data chat to quote unquote production with our actuarial group. And the kind of vision there is to do similar here, right? We'll start small, we'll start with a group, we'll verify the functionality and in the process, and then once that's good, once that's in place, we'll expand it horizontally to the rest of the agency. And then finally, we want to kind of consolidate all these tools and all this information into a singular hub. So, it's great to have these tools, but ultimately we've got to put them in the hands of our users. And the more disconnected they feel, the tools themselves, the more disconnected those feel, the less adoption we'll have. So we want to build a hub or something like an AI marketplace where we can access all the tools from a singular location, and we can also, provide links to training, to information, to best practices, to prompting guidelines, or other things along those nature that will ultimately help drive that adoption and help build that awareness.